Hello everyone, I'm Phil from PCGamesN and joining me is Matt.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about Divinity Original Sin 2 Game Master Mode.
That 80s sort of thing is very, very appropriate, Phil, because Game Master Mode is essentially Dungeon Master Mode.
Yeah.
So obviously, like loads of kids were playing Dungeon Masters, playing Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s, and this is an attempt to bring that classic tabletop dice-throwing role-playing systems into a video game. Now, that kind of sounds maybe sort of a bit like, oh, what are you talking about? Those systems have always been in, especially classic RPGs like we're talking about with Divinity, and obviously those Baldur's Gate sort of influence games. But what Game Master Mode actually is, it genuinely is, there's a Dungeon Master that controls enemies and stuff like that, going up against players that are playing the heroes. So Game Master Mode is split roughly into two elements. You've got the creation sort of tools, and you've got the actual game itself. So with creation tools, let's say you want to make a role-playing game for your friends to play.
I do want that.
Yeah, everyone wants that. Yeah.
I've always wanted that.
And what you don't want is systems that some other developer has made governing what these guys are going to go through. You want the classic sort of thing. And so you've got this idea for a campaign in your head. What you do is you boot up Game Master Mode, and you make a map. So you've got there's loads of kind of different art maps that you can choose from that the game provides, or you can put your own map in. So you could draw one, upload it as a JPEG, put it into the system. So you get a map, and we put pins on that map, and that creates levels, and you bind a level to those pins. So this is creating sort of like your worlds that you're going to create.
Okay.
The Game Master Mode will ship with lots of kind of pre-built levels, basically. So some of those might be kind of like a misty mountain path, or a mine shaft, or a town, something like that. And basically the idea is with that, you get your map and you decorate it much as you would do a Sims sort of house. So you're like,
I get on board with that.
Yeah, I want tables here, I want a wardrobe here, I want an armory section here that you can then put armor in it.
And that's all like from the existing art assets in Divinity Original Sin 2.
Everything that you want that has been in Divinity is pretty much going to be available to you. It's all done through really, really simple menus. Click, drag, drop in world.
Yeah.
You can create whatever kind of campaign scenario you want. If you want a set of like goblins that are going to ambush them out of here, you put those guys in there. If you want a guy that's got 7 different armors, you can put that in. You can set what armor he can sell, set their armor values, all this kind of stuff. You just create these, and they're really, really easily done.
Yeah.
So, and those tools are fairly self-explanatory. You can set if it's night, day, set fires here, make it rain there. All of that, anything that you want to create an immersive kind of classic RPG is there. The key thing that you don't do, though, is it's not like some other kind of campaign creators would sort of like say, oh, you can script this guy, so when the heroes walk in, these people will ambush them. That's not what this is about, because it's actually about replicating the classic tabletop thing. So when you're actually playing in the Game Master mode, it will be the Game Master themselves that controls all these characters.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we need to roll it back to the absolute fundamentals of this, because there have been attempts like, I think, Neverwinter Nights shipped with a multiplayer that allowed someone to sort of be a dungeon master, but nothing's really done it like that. I mean, you're literally playing Dungeons and Dragons through the medium of Divinity. So that's conveyed via text chat or Skype or
the best way to play it, like when I played it with a dungeon master from Larian who was very experienced in kind of doing this sort of stuff.
I'd imagine he'd have been good at doing that.
Yeah, and just some other games journalists, and we actually played them on laptops around a table.
Okay.
Which is probably ideally the best way that you could ever play this, because that combines tabletop playing and actually having computers. But yeah, you could do it over Skype with friends. If you really want to go, you could do text chat. I wouldn't suggest it, but the text chat is there for you to do it.
I guess it would just take a while, right? To
exactly.
describe everything. And,
but that is the point. That's the whole describing. When you say it's like Dungeons and Dragons, you can genuinely, I mean, the point that Larian make out is that if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons in Divinity, you can do that.
Yeah.
You've just got to get a Dungeons and Dragons rulebook, choose a campaign out of it, as a dungeon master, recreate that campaign in your map editor, and then play it. And the beautiful thing about it is so if you've got your game going, you've got combat, let's say combat turns up, you can just use Divinity's combat systems and it'll play out a combat role. But if you've decided that you want to play a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and you're like, you've got a wizard that's like, oh, hold on, I actually want to use a spell that was in Dungeons and Dragons.
But not in Divinity.
But it's not in Divinity. All you've got to do is check out a Dungeons and Dragons rulebook, find out how that spell works. The Game Master mode actually has dice that you can roll. It's got anything from like a D4 up to a D100. As the Game Master, you provide a dice to a hero player and say, roll the dice. If they pass according to Dungeons and Dragons rules, then that spell's a success.
I want to know what a D100 is, Matt. Is it a 100-sided dice?
It is a 100-sided dice, yeah.
Surely that's just a sphere.
Oh, it's
like
absurd. If you ever see
sphere.
one, they're like golf balls.
That's mad. How would you ever see where it's landed? How do you...
See, that's the beauty, though, of doing it in a computer game, isn't it? Because it just tells you what you rolled.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point, is that you can roleplay and you can break the rules because you don't have to stick entirely to it. Like, it's if you want to do it simple, because the whole point of Games Master Mode is it's massively accessible. So you can just play it as Divinity, but you role play. So you can't set up this person in this section of the campaign is going to talk to the heroes, and you can't write out like what their dialogue will be, because the whole point is, if I'm playing with you and I'm the dungeon master, and you come across a goblin, let's say, you're going to talk to the goblin, but I'm going to put on my goblin voice and I'm going to say, oh, you can't pass.
Expert DM here.
Exactly. And you've got to role play with me, and then it's up to me as the game master. I'm governing how this game works. And I'm going to say if you've passed or failed. I'm obviously going to have a certain set of rules that we've created that we're going to follow, which suggests that, like, if you've got to pass a charisma test with me, we'll get you to roll a d20, and if you've got above...
A d20?
Yeah.
Even that seems like quite a lot of sides.
And obviously you can use your player character in Divinity will have stats like wisdom and stuff like that, and we'll use those as base stats. And like, if you've got really high wisdom and you're doing a wisdom roll, we'll make sure that your stat increases the dice roll and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's basically, if you're massively into tabletop gaming, but want to do it with people across the world, let's say, Divinity is the perfect opportunity to do it.
We might be a good case in point here for this because, Matt, I think it's safe to say with your knowledge of D100s, etc., quite a lot more about AD&D than me. I only really know it through the prism of video games and how those rules manifest in games. Could we just have a game straight away without loads of explanation?
You wouldn't have to worry about it, because what you've got is all the kind of like difficult things of trying to do imaginative tabletop gaming is actually produced by the video game.
Right.
I'm doing all the hard work because if you've got to fight a goblin, I'm physically clicking on goblins and making them move across the map.
Physically fighting me.
Yeah, basically.
Still can't go with that goblin voice, by the way.
If the little goblins want to come across, they can come here. But yeah, and the thing is like you can use then Divinity's own sort of like spell rulebook in its own sort of manner. So, for example, we came across a goblin encampment.
Yeah.
And it was like, how do we get past these goblins? Well, we decided that in Divinity it might be a case of that because they were hostile. In a normal campaign, you'd have to fight them. But in basically the way that they'd set it up, this campaign that we were playing was they bring up what's called a vignette, which is like a piece of canvas sort of that has had some art put on it. And it's like, how are you going to deal with these goblins? And the Dungeon Master can actually add options to it. So imagine it's got like a multiple choice on it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do one of the choices that the Dungeon Master has suggested you can do.
Yeah.
You can just add another one on as you're sort of talking about it. So you do that, and we decided that we wanted to parlay with the goblins and just had a nice chat with them. And they were like, oh, okay, we're going to let you past, because we managed to convince them because they're a bit stupid. The other set of journalists were playing the same campaign. There were some journalists in another room. They tried to intimidate them by getting their kind of wizard to like open his cloak, and he just got a belt of goblin heads. Well, the goblins didn't take very well to that. They weren't intimidated at all. They had a massive fight and locked them in a dungeon. The thing is, at the time, the Dungeon Master didn't have a prison to put them in. So he just paused the game for 10 minutes while he went back into the editing tools and made a dungeon, and then just forced all the characters in there and was just like, okay, how are you going to get out of this? And it's that reactivity that you can have with a Dungeon Master that you can't have in a video game. But the moment you put people in charge of the video game systems, you suddenly make this what is genuine, true role-playing. But obviously you get nice fire effects and explosions and all sorts of cool things that are offered by a video game.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Sleep is Death, because it reminds me a bit of that. It's an indie game that came out probably 10 years ago now. It was a bit like a Mad Lib meets AD&D a little bit. It's like very, very simple, like 2D maps. One person is sort of like the DM, and the other is like playing the game and chooses to go over and, say if there's a table, you would go over and write smash table.
Yeah.
And then the DM would have to sort of, I get smash the table, right? Yeah. I guess that's the prototype for this.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, the other thing that came out recently, I guess, was Sword Coast Legends, which also attempted. That was actually on the Dungeons and Dragons license.
Yeah.
But that was bad.
Right.
Basically, this is the good version of you've got your prototype there. You've got what attempted to be a modern day interpretation of that, and Divinity is just. It's true role-playing that, Sleep's Death tried to do, but didn't quite sort of get there.
Yeah.
But it's genuinely true role-playing, but instead of using paper or your imagination, you've got physical effects on screen demonstrating what is going on in this amazing world. The other thing that you can do as well is if you're super advanced with tools, like you can use the Divinity modding sort of sets of tools, make your own campaign completely. You don't have to use the pieces that Larian provide for you.
Yeah.
If you want to do a Lord of the Rings sort of based campaign for your mates, you know how to mod, you can make the Misty Mountains, you can make the Mines of Moria, and just set all that up. And if you can do that, amazing. Your friends are going to have a great time with that.
I imagine that would be quite highly rated as well on any sharing sites that are around. We should say as well, there is going to be just a campaign.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're not going to have to make Divinity Original Sin 2 yourself. Like,
and like what we've seen, the
campaign's all sorted.
Yeah, what we've seen of the campaign is really good as well. So if you just want to play Divinity Original Sin 2, there's going to be an amazing campaign and an amazing arena-based multiplayer. But if you want to create a Dungeons and Dragons game set in the Divinity universe or any universe that you want to think up, this mode, I mean, it feels like it should be sold on its own, really. It's that powerful a tool. But no, it's just part of Divinity Original Sin 2, which we believe will be out roughly about the end of the year, I think. Hopefully they're not stretching their ambitions too far, because this is a very ambitious kind of mode for them to stick in.
It does sound it. Well, we wish them all the best. It's going to be a pretty powerful piece of software. That's a funny thing to say on a video. It's going to be a pretty powerful piece of software. But we are looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good fun. So thank you very much for watching. We'll have any more news on it as we hear it. In the meantime, you can always subscribe to PCGamesN, of course, can't you, Matt?
Yeah, of course you can. There's a button down there.
There's a bell as well that we're told will do things and alert you to things as we do them. That's all for now, though. Thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next time.